absolute pleasure to meet you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It's not often I get to talk to stunt coordinators and people who are behind the scenes creating these scenes that I love to watch. So I'm really excited to break a couple of things down with you today. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat today, man. I
Well,
appreciate it.
thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I want to kick off, and I think it's like awesome timing that we're talking now, not so long after the announcement of the Oscars finally recognizing stunt design as part of their award ceremony coming in a couple of years, and I think many people, I'm assuming yourself and the people in the industry and us as fans alike, have been waiting a long time for this. I'm just curious to know or catch your thoughts on not just the announcement, but what this kind of does for people in your part of the industry and the excitement potentially around it.
Well, it's definitely caused a lot of buzz, amongst, my peers and fellow stunt performers. Long overdue, I think that's something that we've been fighting for, for quite some time. But no, listen, it's long overdue. We're excited. I think it's going to be a great thing to recognize, the talent that's out there, on our side of things. So I'm looking forward to it. And who knows, maybe one day, maybe I'll, have that honor. Who knows?
With some of the man, with some of the stuff you've done and have been doing, it wouldn't shock me. I was lucky enough. I was talking to Corey DeMeyers, another stunt coordinator, a few
Yeah,
weeks ago, and he said it so perfectly in the sense like it's crazy that something called the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences has taken so long to recognize something that is the perfect blend of art and science, right? Like what you
100%.
guys do is a true
Yeah.
blend of that as well. So I'm excited that the recognition is long overdue, but slowly coming your way. It'd be remiss of me to not ask about the fact that for a long time you've been a collaborator with Sylvester Stallone, and it's not just stunt doubling for him, but now second unit directing on a TV show with him and things like that. I'd love to sort of go to the beginning, if that's okay, and sort of where that collaboration first began for you both, and how it has evolved over the years to the point now with Tulsa King that you are second unit directing and working with him again. But where did it begin, and sort of how did that professional relationship evolve?
We started back in 2011 on a movie called Bullet to the Head. So
Yeah.
that was with Stallone and Jason Momoa.
Mm.
Shot that down in New Orleans. And it was just by chance because he had a different stunt double at the time. His main stunt double was actually having some issues with a visa, because
Right.
he's Bulgarian. Yeah. So I got the call. I happened to be in New Orleans, and it was funny. A friend of mine, JJ Perry, called me and said, "Hey, can you come into the office?" And I said, "Sure." So I came in, and JJ's been a friend of mine for a long time. He's a well-known second unit director, stunt coordinator. Now he's directing films. And but back then, I walked into the office, and he goes, "Hey, take your shirt off." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, take your shirt off." And you had an office full of, office staff and PAs, and I think he called the UPM over, and I was like, "Okay." So I took the shirt off, and he goes, "Great, perfect." And he took my headshot and put it under Stallone's on the wall, and it was the funniest thing. Um, but so that was the first, time that I actually doubled him. Of course, Stani, who was his double back then, was able to make it for the majority of the show. So, uh, but that was the first time. Then Escape Plan, the first Escape Plan with Arnold Schwarzenegger was the second time. And that one we had still, when you have big movies, you have multiple doubles. You don't have just one a lot of times because there's multiple units shooting. So I was one of a couple doubles as well in Escape Plan. But then after that, I started getting calls, because I was, a guy here in the United States that, physically resembled, Mr. Stallone. So that's when I think things really started to evolve. When I started getting these calls to come in and double him on different shows, and there's just a rapport that you develop and a comfort that your actor, eventually has with you, and then of course it just evolved to where we are today,
Yeah.
to where he's you know, we don't just work together. I consider him to be a mentor, a friend. I mean,
Yeah,
we text all the time, or even he'll pick up the phone and call, which is surreal just to think Sylvester Stallone's calling me, you know. But, you know, we talk about the show and the
sure.
action. So, um, it's really been sort of just a whole process over the last 14, almost 15 years.
Mm. Yeah, I did notice when you were talking just then there was a moment you called him Mr. Stallone, and now you
Yeah.
consider him a friend. I'm just curious. Was there a moment? Can you pinpoint a moment where he may have become gone from Mr. Stallone to Sly for you? Do you
Why?
remember that moment?
Oh gosh, you know, I think it was probably Creed 2.
Oh, I love Creed
I,
2.
I think Creed 2, because so I did the first escape plan, I did escape plan 2, and then I was going to do escape plan 3, but then I ended up getting injured. And that
Ah,
caused just a whole, I don't want to say issue, but there was trouble. You know, they had issues finding, you know, a good stunt double for him, but also one that he really just prefers and likes.
of course.
He's comfortable with me. So, um, and when I got to Philadelphia, I remember being in hair and makeup, and everyone was like, "Gosh, we really missed you on Escape Plan 3." Sly was really asking, you know, he was asking for you. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, maybe we've moved on from Mr. Stallone to Sly. So
What an honor.
yeah, exactly.
What an honor. And then obviously that collaboration has evolved now into the second unit directing as well. That's obviously on Tulsa King. I'm curious to know when that position or that sort of work first appealed to you, and what sort of being on set for over 2 decades in stunt departments and coordinating stunts has sort of done to help make you a better director as well.
Well, you work with so many departments,
Mm,
right? Every department, you know, especially when we were doing a stunt and it's like we're choreographing or composing, it's like what other elements are involved? Special effects, wardrobe, set deck, you know, construction, all these things, greens. I mean, every stunt, you know, that at least for my world and my approach is when I go and evaluate every stunt, it's like how is what we are doing affecting other departments, and what can we do to work synergistically, you know, to put something really amazing on the screen. So that really opened my eyes from just being a stunt man who just shows up, does the gag, and goes home, to a whole world of like all this stuff that goes into just creating a scene, an action scene.
mm,
Um, and, you know, because I've been coordinating for 15 years. So it's, you know, I started in 2010 on my first show. So it really was an eye-opening process. And now it's just like clockwork because obviously, you know, as time goes on, you
yeah,
gain more experience. But yeah, I make it a point to talk to everyone in other departments, whether it's
yeah,
department heads or people that work in the departments, and say, hey, look, this is what we have going on. You know, what can we do? You know, if I have, you know, doubles that are hitting the ground repeatedly, can we not put them in short sleeve shirts? Perhaps we put them in long sleeves, you know, something like that, just
yeah,
so they can pad up, you know, for the number of takes that we're going to be utilizing. Or if we put them on wires, then that
yeah,
means we've got to cut little holes in the wardrobe.
mm,
And I'm just using that as an example.
sure,
But
sure.
again, I have the conversations with every single department.
Mm,
And what that does is it creates, you know, that synergy, the trust,
mm,
and you actually start bonding with these other departments as well. So you become just one singular unit, you know, as opposed to the opposite is, well, I'm the stunt coordinator and this is how we're doing it, and you got to
sure.
figure out your side of things. And I'm not a big fan of that approach because that is kind of an old school approach, I will say,
Oh,
but it's not.
absolutely. It's fascinating when as I talk to so many people who are part of the filmmaking process, especially the behind the scenes stuff, of how much it really is. It takes a village to do
Oh
these
yeah,
things, and you can't be like the dictator director on set anymore because
right.
of how technical every films and TV are now. It'd be impossible to do it without the help of everyone else. And I'm curious to know, and I guess this is probably more of a question from the perspective of fans and audiences who don't know a lot of the technicalities behind it. What is a predominant or maybe big difference between second unit directing and then say a director whose name pops up in the credits at the beginning of an episode or something? What is it predominantly that you would focus on a day-to-day shoot, being in the second unit?
So second unit could be a couple of things. One,
Mhm,
obviously big action pieces where we don't necessarily have cast. It's mostly
mhm.
stunts. That's not always the case because I've had many second units where they've thrown cast my way just because of our camera shot, our camera angles and things
Right.
that we're seeing. And I'm like, well, we need cast for that. And they go, okay, great. Well, once they're done with main unit, we'll ship them over to you. Obviously, main unit and the main unit directors are shooting dialogue.
Right.
Whereas second unit, we don't really do a lot of dialogue unless it's maybe a pickup or something like that. Um, or it's just an unusual circumstance.
Mm.
We had that last season on season 2 of Tulsa King, where we were shooting main unit and there was a lightning delay
Ah.
and the power went out.
Oh no.
So we're sitting there for probably a couple hours because the lightning just kept going
Yeah.
all day. So they finally just shut it down and they came to me and they said, "Hey, we know you have second unit here tomorrow. We need you to finish this scene with the actors." And I was
Wow.
like, "Oh, fantastic. Let's do it." So
So good.
that was a fun experience to actually sit back behind the monitor and just watch the dialogue, pass along a couple notes and watch them do it again. And we wrapped those guys out and then we got into our action beats. But second unit, essentially is action, things like car
Yeah.
chases or, fire burns, big fight sequences where
Mm.
we predominantly have, stunts, stunt teams, stunt doubles, performing. But then there are also like simple things like inserts
Mm.
and pickups and, or big wide driving sequences. Those are really common for second unit.
Mm. When you did get to film that main unit dialogue scene, did that sort of give you a taste of something that you're like, oh, maybe this is also a potential progression for me? I would love to be main unit directing your own stuff. And is there any projects that are already sort of ruminating in your mind that you'd love to
I
direct?
I have I have voiced to anyone that will listen. Yes, absolutely. And even before I did that last season,
Sure.
it's been on my radar.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I have a
Sure.
few irons in the fire
Nice.
that we're currently working on for main, to put me in the main unit chair. So
Awesome.
as soon as we get the green light and I have, the comfort of saying,
Sure.
yes, I'm doing this, because I don't want to say, yeah, I'm directing this show and then it never happens,
Of
right?
course. Of course.
So yeah, we're getting there. We're working towards that, and just following the footsteps of some of my friends and peers.
Mm.
As we know, several of them have made the crossover
Of course.
from coordinator, second unit director to main unit director.
Mm. And the work that they produce is awesome. So I'm sure that that legacy continues then through some of what we get to see on screen. I'd love to also talk about the stunt coordination and then the stunt work that is going on, especially in Tulsa King. The wind farm fight is awesome. That is such a
Thank you.
great scene. And you're dealing with so much in that scene. You've got the electrical explosions, you've got baseball bats, you've got crowbars, and you've got like a dozen stunt performers
Yeah.
fighting in different pockets of this scene as well. I'm curious to know and it's probably a big question in the sense of from script to page, but when you do read that in a script, what sort of starts the process into getting what we then see on screen, especially with a scene that has so many logistical, technical movements like that one?
Well, it is a collaborative effort. I
Sure.
will say that, with our special effects team, with all the things that they have to do. But fortunately, we've been through that exercise a few times together, so we were able to just get dialed in and do it. But as far as the composition of that whole entire scene, it really came down to, and this is my normal process. I go and sit with Sly,
Mhm.
Mr. Stallone, and we and we just talk things through and we spitball. We spitball ideas and concepts. And there's obviously certain things he wants to see. And one of those things that he made a point was to showcase Bigfoot,
Yes.
cash flow. And and again, when he says certain things, I go, aha, got it. And the first thing I did was call cash flow and say, hey, you're a wrestler. That's your background. What do you like to do?
Mm.
Give me some of your moves, your signature moves that we can incorporate in this thing. Fortunately, again, a great group of stunt guys. Those guys played all throughout the season as part of Ming's crew. So, and again, just being able to collaborate with those guys, on a day-to-day basis makes things much smoother, as far as, going through rehearsals and the time that we spend with our cast and getting
Mm,
them acclimated to the choreography. But, it was just a methodical approach. We did do two different previs, which is a pre-visualization, which is essentially going, hey, this is what this particular action scene will look like. And we bring the whole camera. I'm sorry, not a camera, but we bring in our fight coordinator, and we shoot and edit all of that, and then present it to the production,
mm.
and everyone signs off on it, and makes their notes if they want any changes or anything like that. But it is definitely one of those things where we had to go in character by character and say, how are we going to showcase these guys? Because that was the note from Fly is
Right.
let's showcase Tyson.
Mm,
So that was really the first time that Tyson really got in there and got after it,
yeah.
because in season one it was a little bit different, with his character, but it shows the evolution as well of,
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
the character. So, but that's such a fun, scene that we did, and of course I got to get in there as well and play some. I don't get to do that as often anymore, but
Right.
it was fun to do, and I really enjoyed it.
It's such a awesome scene. I'm curious when that does come in. How does it read on a script? I know you said there's sort of all the technical sides you do flesh out with the team and with Sly and things like that. But
Mhm.
on the script, does that just read as there is a fight at the wind farm ultimately, and you just get to have a sort of creative control to be like, this is how it should look with those notes on top of it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And fortunately, our writers, from season two in season one,
Mhm.
we have rapport.
Yes.
And, basically the note I was given was, hey, whatever you read on the page,
Mhm.
you put something together that you think looks good
Yeah.
and that you want to do.
Incredible.
And, coming from someone like Terrence Winter, who is,
Mm. Oh,
just an
he's a
amazing
legend. Yeah.
legend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For him to say something like that to me, really, I mean, I just, I can't tell you how warm I felt inside for have Terry Winter say, hey, Freddie, you do what you want to do. And so it was very cool to just to hear those words from him. So I have just absolute mad respect for the man. Plus, he's just a solid, genuine human being and such a down-to-earth, nice guy. For all of his accolades,
Yeah.
he's just a normal guy, when you talk to him. Great human being. All the
Oh,
respect in the world for Terry Winter.
he's truly incredible. Some of his work, especially for me as like a young movie lover, was so formative for me. I remember
Yeah.
watching Boardwalk Empire,
Yeah.
when I was like a late teen. I was like, oh, this is like genuine, incredible stuff. And to hear that he's just a good guy as well is so heartwarming, to be honest. To continuing about the technicalities and what goes into a stunt. From what we see on the screen, there seems to be like a range in how hard or how technical a stunt can be. It can be someone falling over. It could be a car
Mhm.
blowing up. It could be the wind farm scene where you got 12 people fighting. Is the same amount of precision and detail have to go into every single stunt that you do? Like, do you go into it with the same mentality every single time, no matter how big or small a stunt may seem?
I do. I do. Because what I want to come on the screen, what I want to come across the screen is authenticity.
Yeah,
I don't want to do action just for action's the sake of action.
sure.
Or, what I love about our show, Tulsa King, is that we don't just have gratuitous action,
Sure.
and this is my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, of
So,
course.
um, because I've seen certain things written certain ways, and like, well,
Hmm.
is that really the tone and style of the show?
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
So then when we get into these conversations, it really comes down to authenticity and story. And that's a big thing for me. And that's the approach that I take, with every stunt, unless it's just a single punch. Okay. There's that a punch is a punch, right?
Yes, that's
So,
it.
but when it comes to action scenes
Mm,
and storytelling, it's important that we recognize, hey, number one, what's the story here? What are we trying to sell to the audience? And what are we trying to, invoke in what type of emotion are we trying to invoke in them? Like the last scene at the stables.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
That scene itself, that was very, when things got going, it was very quick.
yeah. Oh wow.
In those initial conversations, it was like, what do we do here? How do we make this really authentic?
Mm,
And I said, well, let's take the blueprint of, in my opinion, one of the best endings of a show
mm,
is very little dialogue, because that's what we were dealing with. We didn't have a
yeah,
lot of dialogue in that last scene, and it
yeah.
was the Last of the Mohicans.
Oh yes. Oh my. Now you've said that. I watched
There's the
Lost Mohicans
blueprint.
probably like a month ago, and that is yes, 100%. Yes.
There's the blueprint right there, because
Wow.
very little dialogue,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
amazing cinematography, amazing storytelling.
Super impactful. Yeah.
And again, the note from Sly was quick and violent. And that's
Mm,
again, when I hear those words, okay, sir, got it.
yeah.
And I said, everything leading up to the moment those lights turn on,
Yeah.
the guns are ablazing, there's our
Wow.
story. There's our story. So I used Last of the Mohicans as kind of a blueprint. You
Wow.
know, to, we didn't have 9 minutes like Last
No,
of the
like
Mohicans did.
like that scene. Yeah, yeah.
But you
Yeah, no,
understand what I'm saying.
totally, and atmospherically, and that almost the emotional impact of it as well,
Yeah.
very much is resonant with that. I mean, there's not as many people like Michael Mann that you can look up to for
Right.
great inspiration for that sort of thing. I mean, guess while we're talking about inspirations, I'm curious if you don't mind taking it all the way back to the beginning for you and sort of when you began playing around with the idea of wanting to go into this industry. Do you remember whether it was a movie or a TV show or a certain performer or anything that began your love for maybe not even just doing the stunt work, but just filmmaking in general?
It probably goes back to my childhood.
Mm,
When I was first exposed, the very first action star that I was exposed to was Chuck Norris.
yes. That's,
When I was a kid, my father was taking me to Chuck Norris movies.
mhm.
So that inspired me. It inspired me to start martial arts. So I've been a lifelong martial artist.
Oh,
Um, Lucky for me, I got my career start on Walker, Texas Ranger
oh,
with
that's
Chuck.
awesome.
And again, Chuck and his family are now close friends. So,
Yeah, wow.
but Chuck was the first inspiration. And then, of course, that was probably late 70s.
Mhm.
That's when all those Chuck Norris movies, that I recall.
Yep, yep.
Then you get into the 80s.
Mhm.
Then it was, of course, Sylvester Stallone
Flying.
and
Yep,
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Those were the two.
yep.
I wanted to be Rocky or Rambo,
Mm.
or the Terminator.
Yeah,
So, and I always had a very creative mind as a child. It probably didn't serve me that well in school. Head in the clouds all the time.
all the
But
creatives in the world can relate, I think, to that,
yeah,
Freddie.
yeah, yeah. But I think that really kind of forged who I am,
Yeah.
and that's the foundation, because I idolized these people growing up.
Mm.
And then here I am, however many years later, working with them side by side. And it's
Yeah.
been sort of like I said, sort of just a surreal thing when I really think about it.
Yeah, that's so incredible. It's like whether you believe in whatever manifestation or whatever it is, I feel like if you're so almost tunnel visioned onto something that is so much your passion and things like that, it's
Yeah.
almost impossible that you aren't going to find yourself on the path towards that. I've been lucky enough to do interview things for about 3 or 4 years now, and I would never have thought that I get to talk to anyone that I get to talk to that I in this industry that I love. So I think it's for creatives. I think a lot of people will relate to that sentiment of just,
Yeah,
and if you love
totally.
something, you just somehow find a way, which is awesome. I'll wrap up on this, and I always, whenever I talk to anyone who has worked with stunts in any way, shape, or form, I can't not ask this question. But I always ask for two. What is the craziest stunt you've ever done, and what is your favorite if they are different?
The craziest was the first escape plan,
Yep.
where we did a helicopter gag. So I'm
Yep.
I'm in basically the water,
Hmm.
treading water, and a Huey, which is a military chopper, comes
Yep.
in. drops a ladder. I have to swim to it, climb and hold on while it takes off
Awesome.
100 feet in the air. So there's no safety line. So that was probably the craziest. And the only reason I say that is because I almost drowned during the rehearsal.
Oh
But
no.
yeah, just because I was left out there treading water for so long.
Yeah, yeah.
And, if you see my physical stature, I'm not built like a swimmer.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so at some, and I'm a decent swimmer,
Mm,
but at some point, after treading water for so long, you can only do so much. So
exactly. Yeah.
we had to go and figure some things out just to keep me afloat. So we did, I think, 17 or 18 takes.
Wow.
And again, you would think, okay, well, what's the big deal? You just swim to a ladder. I said, well, that's a helicopter. That rotor wash is pushing you
Yeah.
away, and then just to have the strength to climb up a metal ladder. It dropped on my head one time.
Oh God.
And, by the end of the day, I was worn out, because that
Done.
was
Yeah.
done. Yeah. So that was the craziest. Might be my favorite one as well, though, to be honest with you, because it's just, one of those things because it's different. Because, I came into the business as a fight guy.
Right.
So I've done so many fights in my career. So it's hard for me to pinpoint one that's like, oh, this one was really good,
Sure.
or I like this one over that one. But I think the helicopter sequence in Escape Plan is probably has to be up there, up near the top for me.
I mean, the fact that on film forever now, you holding onto a ladder with a helicopter flying away is there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think some people would kill to be in that position. So that's pretty rad. That is pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
It was
Um,
fun. It was fun.
and if it looks good, that's the icing on top
Yeah.
as well. Freddie, dude, thank you so much for your time today, man. I genuinely love having conversations like this because someone who grew up in the '90s on action films and still loves them now. I love seeing or talking to people about how the sausage is made, but the magic that really goes into it. So thank you for sort of letting me into that experience today, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope we get to do it again for sometime soon for whatever else is
Yeah.
coming up.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to do it. Thanks, Nick. I
For whatever you're
appreciate the
directing
time.
next, maybe for whatever the first
Yeah.
directorial debut. I think we've
That would be
definitely got to
great.
chat.